Hello everyone, Karen Warden with Film Courage, the radio show, outside the studio with filmmaker Alex Ferrari, live and in person.
How you doing?
Very excited, and our team of researchers behind the scenes found this quote from you, Alex, and I'm going to read it here. As I stated above, the amazing and wonderful Final Cut Pro. For my money, I will always edit on FCP, Screw Avid. In light of everything changes today, do you still feel this way?
People are mean. Yes, absolutely I do. I still believe that Final Cut is going to be good. I know there's a lot of... Final Cut 7 is still wonderful. And the current version, other than the aforementioned Final Cut X, that is... God, I'm all flustered. Basically, with Final Cut X, my feeling is this. I've seen it, I've looked at it, they've rebuilt it from the ground up. And it's changing the way people edit, and a lot of people are unhappy with that. I think in about a year and a half or 2 years, I think Final Cut X will be at a point where it will be where Final Cut 7 is as far as the accessibility, outputting, professionalism. I think they just did the basic, ground one build up, and it will get to that point. I hope. Like it doesn't support RED, it doesn't support a broadcast monitor. You can't really export it. It doesn't support anything like a lot of the other formats. It's still in its infancy. So just like when Final Cut Pro originally came out, Final Cut 1 is a lot different than Final Cut 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It was massive changes as it went along. So I think that's what's going to happen now. I think that Apple made a mistake by not supporting the old Final Cut. We're not supporting it anymore. I think a lot of people are pissed at that. A lot of people are trying to jump on Premiere or going to Avid or something like that. For me, I'm always going to be on Final Cut if it's available. I think eventually maybe Apple will sell it to somebody else because it's such a massive base of a user base that you just can't let a user base like that die. It's stupid. They would probably sell it off to a Blackmagic or a Quantel or somebody that will take it and move it forward. But Apple, I think, still believes a lot in it because they actually rebuilt it from ground up. So they spent a lot of money to put together Final Cut X. So only time will tell. But until then, I have my Final Cut 7. I'm quite happy.
Okay. And your company is Numb Robot in Toluca Lake, California.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about it.
Numb Robot is a company I started back in... I've been in post since '96. My main company was Enigma Factory, and then I opened up Numb Robot in 05, 06 after Broken was released, because I had a lot of filmmakers come to me saying, "Hey, I saw what you did on Broken. I want to hire you to do that on my film." So I said, "Well, let me just open up a new company and include visual effects and things like that in it." And we've been open since 05, 06, and we just got here in Los Angeles about 3.5 years ago. And we've been doing very, very well. We have a new facility in Toluca Lake right by Warner Brothers. And we do color grading on a DaVinci. We do visual effects, editorial, all sorts of color grading, post-production supervision, red camera workflow, and all deliverables, HDSRs, HD cams, anything that a filmmaker might need to get their movie out into the product place. And we also we have deals with... for DCPs, digital cinema packages, as well as film out as well. So we do everything.
Okay. So in all of the projects that have come to you, you've
Mm-hmm.
worked on, I'm sure, over dozens of
Mm-hmm.
film. What are you impressed by, and then what are you not impressed by? What are you seeing as some of the pros and some of the cons of what comes to you?
I think the biggest thing that I'm impressed with is they got it made. That they got money. It's the biggest challenge. If someone wrote me a check today for $1 million, I can go make a movie. I can go make maybe 2 movies. That's always impresses me. Like, how did you get the money? It's always been the biggest thing. How do you get the money? I think it's the biggest thing for filmmakers, at least for me, because all the other elements I have kind of covered. I've got post, I've got production, I can get it done from point A to point B. It's just getting the money to get the engine running. So the thing that impresses me most is usually that they got the money and that they got out and did it. I did a movie called Obsoletia that won Sundance, won 2 awards at Sundance, and it was a small little film made for about $200,000. Wonderful director. I absolutely just fell in love with her. She's wonderful. Her and her husband just just kind of like pulled up their bootstraps and made this little movie with no major actors in it, no known actors, little story, and they submitted it to Sundance, and it got accepted as one of the 13 in competition. And that still blows me away. I'm so proud to be a part of that project. I just spoke to her the other day. We're getting ready to do a Blu-ray release on it, so I'm going back to do some work on it. And that kind of stuff impresses me, because she was so heartfelt about the kind of story she was trying to tell. So basically, an environmental film wrapped up in a love story that you never see. You never feel that it's being preachy. So it was really well written and well directed, and it won Best Cinematography and the Alfred P. Sloan Award at Sundance, and I was really, really proud, like I said, to be a part of that. So those kind of things really impress me, that someone who really has a good place in their heart. It's not coming from a place of ego, which in this town I'm sure you've met a couple of egos. A lot of filmmakers I feel, things that don't impress me is filmmakers who come in who think they're entourage. They want to live the life. I had projects where the director was out in strip clubs while I'm editing, and then comes in like, well, what's wrong? Why isn't this cutting right? I'm like, dude, because you've been in a strip club, So I'm like, dude, really? Stuff like that. So those kind of ego places really don't. If you got the money and you did it, I'm not impressed with that kind of stuff. People who want to live the lifestyle and not make films, they're in it for the wrong reasons. So those things really kind of dishearten me a lot of times, and a lot of times it's all about egos. It's I did a project that had 30 producers on it. I'm not joking, 30 producers on it, and everybody had their say in whose font's bigger and where am I on the line, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. So if you don't come from a place of ego, I guess is what I would like to work with filmmakers who want to make film, who's about making film, who are about trying to change the world through their art in one way, shape, or form. Whether that be an action movie that helps you escape for a second, or a documentary that makes you think about the meaning of life. Those are, they both have their place. But as long as they're coming from a place of wanting to, I think Spielberg always wants to entertain you, wants to take you out of that place. While other directors, I feel, sometimes it's just pure ego.
What would you say are the 5 red flags where someone's coming from a place of ego versus the 5 points of someone coming from a place of just wanting to do the work?
Great question. I guess people who are interested in the product and not in themselves is probably one of the flags of being a humble filmmaker who wants to just tell a good story. Someone who wants to tell a good story, someone who's not in it about them, someone who doesn't really care about where their name is, how their name is presented. Don't get me wrong, you have to market yourself in this business. It's a business still, but people who put the movie first and not themselves first is the big plus. I look for that in any aspect of filmmaking, from the sound guy to the actor, who put the movie first, because at the end of the day, it's not about them, it's about the movie, it's about the story you're trying to tell. So I think that's a good sign of a good director, who's putting the story first before they put themselves first. And I think the opposite of that coin is that directors a lot of times, or producers, or actors, or any of these people, will put themselves first, like, how is this going to make me look, what's this going to do for me, I want this, I want that. I mean, if I tell you stories of things that have happened, it's just the places of ego. You just sit there. My wife is a social worker, and she's not in the business at all, and she just sits there in awe of, like, these people are ridiculous. Like, the ego is amazing. They think they're curing cancer when I deal with children who have real problems. She works at a children's hospital with burn victims and amputees and things like that, and like, those are real problems. They're like, my font's not big enough. I'm like, wow. So those are the kind of things those are kind of red flags. But I've been blessed that most people that come to me usually have been very, very good, and I do everything in my heart to try to get their project out into the world at the best technical qualities possible, whether that be color grading, visual effects, making sure we handle the technical aspects of things so they don't have to worry about it, which I think is one big downfall with a lot of filmmakers. They don't understand the technical aspect of things. It's not like the olden days where you shoot film, you cut it, and you put it out. The workflow has changed so dramatically, and it changes daily from camera to camera, and from editing system to editing system, and color and visual. There's 1,000 ways to skin the cat when there used to be only one. So if a filmmaker's not aware of those workflows, I think it's a big hindrance to them as a filmmaker. Because if you're not a technical filmmaker nowadays and don't understand your tools, it's like Picasso not understanding paint or not understanding a brush. It's the same thing. You really have to understand the tools that you have at your disposal, because, you know, the first time I ever worked with a techno-crane, I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to shoot with a techno-crane. I did a music video with one, and it changed my life. I'm like, I'd never want to shoot without a techno-crane again. It's a computerized crane that goes in and out and moves and does all this kind of stuff. And I was just like, oh my God, this is, it's like the first time you ever work with a Steadicam. Like, oh my God. Like, so if you don't understand these tools and where they're supposed to be used properly, then you're just not using all the brushes in your box.